All right, it is 7:02 on June 3rd, 2026, and I will call the meeting of the Essex Planning Board to order. I will take a motion, and Simone will be joining us online. Is she online?
Yes.
Okay, so Simone is online, so we'll be doing roll call votes when we vote. And this meeting is being recorded. So I will take a motion to continue the public hearing opened on March 4th, 2026, continued to March 18th, 2026, continued again to April 1st, to April 15th, to May 6th, and to May 20th, and continued again till tonight, June 3rd, 2026, on the definitive subdivision plan application by Bell Point LLC for property at 0 Essex Park Road, 0 Pond Street Rear, map 147, lot 19, and map 142, lots 30 and 31, to create a 36-lot open space residential development subdivision under the Town of Essex rules and regulations relative to subdivision control, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 41, Sections 81K and 80 through 81GG, also known as the Subdivision Control Law, and per a special permit issued on September 3rd, 2025, per Section 6-8, Open Space Residential Development, OSRD, of the Town of Essex zoning bylaw. It's a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Beth. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Shelley. All those in favor?
Aye.
Roll.
Aye, Peter Levisard.
Aye, Beth Walsh. Aye, Shelley Bradbury.
Aye, Ariel Brain.
Aye, Lisa O'Donnell. Simone?
Hi, Simone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep, yeah, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Super. Hi.
Okay, so we are open and ready to go, so,
You just need to be closer to the mic.
okay, sorry. Too much stuff in my life. Sorry. Okay. So we will, what is new since last meeting is that today we received the revisions from the applicant based on the peer review comments that were prepared by Weston and Sampson. So we have received from the applicant a summary letter that is 16 pages long and prepares responses to all of Weston and Sampson's outstanding comments. So in Weston and Sampson's peer review, there were a lot of items that they basically checked the box and said that the application meets the standard to which they're comparing. So those are not addressed in this letter. Only the items where Weston and Sampson said that more information was needed. So Will is here from Moore and Cameron, and what I'm going to ask him to do is to walk us through that, since we're just seeing this. We all have a copy of this memo. I can bring it up on the screen if we need to for some reason, and I can also bring up the plans on the screen. I asked Will to bring full-size sets of the plans for the board members, so a copy is in front of each of us here if we need to refer to the plans as we walk through the comments here to understand the changes that have been made to what was originally submitted. So I will turn it over to you, Will. Planning board members, as we go through this, if you have questions, please interrupt and ask the questions as we're going. Don't save them till the end. This is a conversation to understand what we're seeing in this revision. I don't know.
Working? Yep, there we go. All right, for the record, Will Scooter from the Moore and Cameron Group. Just a little background on kind of what has progressed with this project is we're here for the subdivision, which is the roadways and the utilities. We've also kind of been working with a builder, potential builder. So we've refined kind of the overall plan, and with those revisions come some adjustments to some of the utilities as well as the stormwater design. So you'll see that the plans do have grading that changed for the lots, but the roadways themselves, nothing has changed. None of the lot lines have changed. Just the utility connections have been adjusted to accommodate kind of the new proposed building envelopes. But the overall roadway design is the same as what's been presented previously. So what I will do is I'll kind of go through our letter and our responses. As Lisa mentioned, we did only respond to kind of comments that warranted a response, and we just kind of left the other comments out of our letter to kind of take the bulk out of some of this. So going through it, there was first a comment regarding the driveways and potentially blocking of the pedestrian way. As we noted that these building envelopes are conceptual and for the purposes of the drainage calculations, more or less the impervious coverage. However, we have revised the plans and all the driveways are now side-loaded garages, so they adequately basically get the cars on the side of the house, so it alleviates the problem or potential issue that a car could be blocking the pedestrian sidewalk.
So could I interrupt? Will? So when you say side-loaded, that means the driveway goes beside the house and the cars would turn into the garage?
Correct,
So
yes.
the garage doors don't face the street, the garage doors face the side lot line?
Correct, yep.
Okay.
So,
Just to clarify, thank you.
yes, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, the driveway is a little bit larger and basically goes to the side of the house rather than just going directly into the front of the house.
So 1 second, so does that mean like all the designs from the builder, it has to fit that format then?
So these are building envelopes. They're not the
Okay.
actual houses, and they encompass a variety of potential houses that could be built. But yes, the intent is, our directive was this footprint or this square will fit a number of houses that they potentially might build, as well as the driveway. They prefer, that's their preference, is to have a side-loaded garage versus a front entry garage.
I have a question. Are the footprints of the buildings and the driveway the maximum areas allowed on each lot?
So they are not the maximum allowed. That is what we show. There's a table on the plans that has the overall cap, which is the 15% for the overall lot that we basically allotted impervious area. None of the proposed lots trip into that cap threshold. So they're all under the threshold of what would be allowable. However, they varied and that impacts the stormwater. So the stormwater design basically accounts for these envelopes that are shown and the driveways that are shown. Most likely, I can't guarantee it, but most likely the house that would be built would be smaller than what's shown. It's just that this is basically a conservative approach that we design everything to accommodate any scenario that we have, so it's basically more or less over-designed in aspect.
Would it be possible to request a plan that shows the maximum built areas?
It is listed on the plan, on the, hold on, let me find what number, on the OSRD zoning plan, sheet 27, there is a table, and that table basically lists, there's a lot of the zoning requirements on this table, and within it you'll see that there's the proposed impervious cover, which is basically the impervious cover that is shown on the plans as of today, and then the impervious cover cap, which is the maximum allowable, which would be regulated by the building inspector.
What are the dashed lines are the setbacks here, right?
Yes, the dashed lines are basically the zoning criteria
Okay.
for structures on each lot. So that's the OSRD, so a 12.5-foot front yard. I believe it's a 10-foot, 10-foot side yard and a 15-foot rear yard.
So the impervious cap is both the paving and the house, right?
Yeah, so the impervious cover, proposed impervious cover that's shown, the fourth column from the right side and the fifth and fourth column, those two columns, they basically are for any impervious cover, which includes walkways that are shown, driveways, and the building envelopes. So that is what we designed the stormwater for. However, in the future, say somebody wanted to build something, a shed or a patio, they would be allowed to increase their impervious cover to that impervious cover cap number, but they would have to mitigate for stormwater and such, and that would be something that we didn't design it for, but they would be allowed. So, for example, on Lot 1, you'll see that we have 2,914 square feet of impervious cover, which is proposed, and basically the stormwater system designed for that. However, In the future, they theoretically have 6,579 square feet of impervious cover they could build, potentially.
But then the HOA would have to redesign the sewer facility and
The
the
stormwater.
stormwater.
Yeah, and that's something, we designed the stormwater system
Yeah.
basically for what's shown, and in the future, if somebody, just like a single-family house, there's a local bylaw, the stormwater bylaw, if you trip that threshold, you have to design stormwater to account for the impervious cover.
Could you repeat what the 2914 number is again?
So that's what is shown on the plans today, and that includes all impervious coverage. So on the lot itself, you have the driveway, walkways, and the building envelope. And
That's just a make-believe number. That's like, has no, I mean, there's a good chance that number will never be the actual number, right? Because they could do 6,500 square feet.
They could, but they would have to design the stormwater to accommodate anything over the 2,914. So the stormwater system's designed to account for all the impervious cover shown in that column. Any increase, they're allowed to increase, they would have to mitigate for that increase. And in order to, because we're in the watershed protection overlay, we basically assigned a capped value. So they will never be able to get a building permit and design something greater than 6,579 square feet on that lot.
So if they wanted to do 3,900 square feet, the extra 1,000, they would have to mitigate themselves
Correct.
within their property line? lines?
Correct. Yep, they would have to mitigate for stormwater that increase in impervious area. Anything greater than what we have designed for.
And would that be like dry wells or, their own design of? Or
Yeah,
someone's
it
design?
potentially could be a dry well, it could be a bioretention area, something of that
Something.
sort, some kind of mitigation.
Something that would have to be approved by the building department.
Correct.
Bill,
I was going to say, so this table is helpful for the building inspector, a way for him to regulate. So I believe it's going to be a condition that an as-bilt's required. So once that as-bilt's prepared, we'll have a number that Bill will be able to say, well, that number is greater than this, it's non-compliant. Or it's less than this number, it's compliant.
so Bill, how about if 50% of the houses wanted to go to the maximum and then they would have to mitigate the stormwater, but doesn't that then make it harder on the facility of facilitating all this water? Like, how does that work for you and for this? How do we maintain that, or the HOA?
If they're following this chart, they're compliant. If they're not following the chart, they're not compliant. We're not going to show them the permit. So I'm not sure what you're asking. If they're going with the chart, they're going to comply with the stormwater the way it's been created for the whole project.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering, like, does it make a difference with the extra than stormwater that they have to mitigate? But how about if 50% of the houses are doing that?
They should be okay with the...
Should be okay, because
Should be
it's
okay.
outside of their design, that they designed for the lower lot, like,
I'm not sure I'm following.
I think what you're asking is if a bunch of houses want to exceed the allowable cover that they've designed for, what happens then? Each lot has to design their own mitigation measures within their lot so that they don't affect anything downstream. So it's just a case by case. So even if they all wanted to do it, all of them need to do it.
I'm still not following. They're not going to be able to exceed this chart, correct?
So
They don't have a choice.
There's two thresholds, I think, is what we're looking at. There's a threshold that the stormwater system is designed for, and every lot is given an allowance. But when we look at the overall OSRD parcel, there's a higher area that everyone is allowed to have per the Water Resource Protection Overlay District. So there's this gap between what the stormwater is designed for and what they could maximize based on the water resource protection overlay. So if they want to go above what the stormwater system design is, then they need to take it into their own hands and mitigate the stormwater on their piece of property with
Yes.
whatever mechanism they choose to use.
Right, so
That-
as of right, they have this column, right? Impervious cover, square footage. If they want more, they could go up to this column, but then the difference they have to resolve within their own property.
with all their property.
Right.
And it shouldn't affect the overall, because each house is limited to so much coverage, and they can't exceed that maximum coverage.
So this is the kind of thing, it's good to know because we will make sure that this is clearly spelled out in the decision with how it's going to be memorialized in either the HOA documents or the recorded deed. So that's something we'll address.
That's what I'm wondering, is it possible that this chart gets recorded with each deed? Therefore, down the road, there's no argument with somebody coming and saying, well, they told me I could do this, to say, that's what's recorded, that's what you have to.
Each deed is going to reference the maximum coverage that they're allowed to have as part of the conditions we've drafted.
Yeah, right, that's what I'm saying. So it won't be the whole chart, they'll just have each deed will have the total maximum amount on it. Okay.
Yes.
I'm not sure exactly, the deeds are something separate, but what will happen is these plans are going to be recorded and are going to be the plan of record for that lot. So that's.
Draft decision asks that you include that information in the deed as well.
Okay, I honestly, I have not seen the draft decision, so if
Yeah.
that's there, then okay.
Yeah, that's going to be in there, just because it is the water resource protection overlay, and we want to just be explicit about it.
Fair enough. Okay.
It's a little hard, 10 years down the road, what happened to these? It sounds simple,
I get
but
it,
it's
yeah.
not, and you probably deal with it in your office. It's not as simple as it sounds. A little easier with electronics now, but
Yep, I agree.
Yep, I think we're good.
All right, there was a comment regarding the maximum coverage calculations. I think this has been discussed with the planning board kind of throughout this whole process. So, as we noted, there is a section in the zoning bylaw that basically says that it's not applicable, that 25%. It's based on, and we had previously discussed this, because this is an OSRD of that the reduced lots, that it's not really applicable. So it's more or less what's going to be approved, and that's what basically prompted us to put this table together. So that basically is related to what we just discussed, that comment.
Right.
The next comment regarded the wetland overlay district. We had previously talked about this at the last meeting. We just kind of formalized this and re-provided that same sketch where we overlaid our development onto the town of Essex maps themselves. There is a comment regarding basically soil testing. We had talked to the peer reviewer, and it was agreed that we'll basically do additional testing as required, and we would ask for that as a condition of approval in the permit. The next one is regarding, again, back to the reduction of the dimensional requirements. And again, this talks about the OSRD table that we had just mentioned with the impervious coverage. Moving along to the open space requirement.
Can I just circle back to that? Didn't we talk about at some point having those percentages or areas put on a plan?
They're in that table. That's what that table is.
Right, I know that's what the table is, but I'm talking about having like a plan, like the lotting plan or something like that.
We asked as a condition that there be a sheet that goes with the lotting sheets that shows the coverage.
I guess because I know there's a table here, but is there a plan, are we asking for a plan that actually has a number on the plan of the lot?
With the lot.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you mean for the drainage, that kind of thing. The lot numbers get assigned by the assessors, so they need to run the lot numbers through the assessors to get those approved and placed on the plans before they're endorsed.
Okay. And is that sufficient, do you think, Val?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. What? Sorry, do you have a question, Bill?
What gets confusing later on is just that the assessor's lots compared to the subdivision lots.
We're gonna have the assessors number the lots on the definitive plan so that it'll match the assessors.
But then when we go to the chart for the lot coverage, we're going to have the lot numbers that are on the plan as it was laid out for the subdivision.
No, you're gonna have a lotting sheet that's gonna go with this, that's gonna have those coverages located on that, it's in the conditions. They're gonna have to add a sheet to the plans that correlates to the lots that are platted out by the assessors that will show the coverages per lot on the plan. So there, you'll have a correlating plan with that information that matches the assessors.
Okay, I get what you're saying. I'm just thinking the timelines. Sometimes the assessors can be up to a year and a half behind. And that's.
But you're gonna have this plan recorded with the assessor's information.
So the recorded plan needs to have the assessor's information before it gets recorded, is what you're saying, Val?
Yes.
Okay. So the assessors will be in the loop before, because the plan isn't going to be recorded. The plans that are in front of us are not going to be the ones that are recorded. After we issue our decision, then there will be a final set of documents, which are the ones that get endorsed later, like after the appeal period and whatever else goes on there. After the appeal period is over, then any other changes or modifications, they come back with the final set of plans. Those are the ones that we endorse, just like we do A&Rs, Mylars, whole kind of thing that goes to the registry. And at that point, the assessors will have had to assign numbers.
Well, that's my question is,
Well, they will
Does-
have to, because if it's going
They
to the
have to get-
registry.
can they do
Yeah.
that? I know past it's been, sometimes it's been like a year before the assessors will give them an official number. And that's
Correct.
what I'm
No.
just concerned about. Well, I'm not sure how the process is going to work with the assessors here. We haven't done that many of them.
Just like with an A&R plan, a lot number gets assigned before it gets recorded, and that's gonna happen here.
So typically, the assessors are not related to the lots. This is for property lines, the lotting plans. I think a recommendation, maybe it would be easier, is individual site plans, when they get submitted for the building permit, reflect those numbers, and they're basically on those plans, rather than on the
Okay, so let's do this. We're not going to solve this tonight. Between Val, Bill, and I will reach out to the assessor's office, and we'll figure out exactly what is going to happen. And then, because this isn't something that
Yep.
is going to change anything. This is a procedural box we need to check. So I will work with Bill, the assessors, Brendan, whoever else, to resolve exactly what's going to need to be done, and we'll make sure that's memorialized in the decision. That work?
Yep.
Moving along, there was a comment regarding the open space. Again, this is something that we had previously discussed, that the drainage and the septic leaching areas are allowed to be included. That's in the special permit. So we just responded that there's no revisions to any of the calculations required. On the street plan and profile, basically we just updated our plans to show the proposed contours as requested by the peer reviewer. Under the general comment, that's just a general comment that the technical comments have been addressed with this letter, so we're just responding to that. On streets and ways, I think we had previously discussed, there was discussion of how these street names are going to come about, whether it was a lottery with the schools, but for right now we have not determined them, and we would just request that's a condition of approval to provide and come back before the board for the street names. There was a comment regarding kind of a general note for construction conformance. So we did just add a standard note just saying that construction will conform to the Mass DOT standard specification for highway and bridges. Those are just specifications for materials typically used in the construction of the road, the pipe bedding, X, Y, and Z. So we are going to comply with that, and that was added to the plans. The next one is regarding the sidewalk connecting our property out to Western Ave. They initially, it's not typical to have a crosswalk kind of cross Essex Park Road midway down. However, there are site constraints. 7 Essex Park Road has basically a raised septic system, and the slope goes directly down. So we weren't able to cross the road kind of right at our development, and then we're constricted by the culvert as well. So in addition to the response that we provided, we also provided an exhibit of some photos. Basically, take it with a grain of salt, please. I did the best I could to highlight kind of where this connection is in the sidewalk, where it's going to be located, and the reasoning why. So you'll see on this first photo, it basically depicts where they're going to be. And if you want to scroll down to
This is facing Western, right?
Yep. So the arrows, I tried to put an arrow basically where you're standing to locate yourself to Western Ave. So heading further down, this is at the culvert crossing. So on the right side of this picture here, you'll see that the slope drops off really fast. There's not really an existing shoulder. It's about 2 feet and basically drops right down to the culvert. You'll see in one of the other photos, there's actually a tree that's kind of sticking, and you'll see it's more or less a 45-degree slope. Go to the next one. And this is kind of looking back. So Western Ave is right directly behind you, and this is looking down Essex Park Road. You'll see on the right side, there's the culvert crosses under the Essex Park Road, but there's kind of an existing natural shoulder that's a little wider and feasible to actually construct the sidewalk. So this is what we provided in our response to basically justify why we had the crossing located where it is.
And what had Weston and Sampson suggested, closer to Western Ave?
Yeah, so typically you would have a sidewalk run all the way down one side. So either the right side from Western Ave all the way down to our development, or on the left side all the way down. But on this particular project,
Yeah,
we do
constraints.
have to cross at some point, and due to the septic system at 7 Essex Park Road and the existing culvert, we were basically constrained on where we could cross. Are there any questions with that?
So at Western Ave,
Which picture do you want?
well, at the end of us, well, once you get to,
Shelley, can you use the mic?
once you get to Western Ave, will the sidewalk just end, or will there be more of a platform for kids to stand on? Or I'm just sort of seeing it ending and wanting to know how it's finalized.
Yep, and so what we're actually proposing, and it's a comment kind of coming up, we do have a crosswalk that crosses Western Ave and basically hooks into the existing sidewalk on that side. That will also have ADA curb ramps in full compliance. So there will be an area. We're also showing kind of an area for a bus stop.
Okay, thanks.
Can you go back to the picture that shows the driveway at 7, is it 7 Essex Park? Yes. Why aren't we bringing the sidewalk further up, closer to the driveway?
It's not closer because there's existing, basically it's a curb cut for the drainage. There's no closed drainage system on Essex Park Road. So we're actually going to have to cross one of them. So there's 2 curb breaks, and we're just trying to limit that and maintain existing drainage patterns.
Okay, thank you. And where's the bus stop located?
Right at the end, at the intersection of Essex Park Road and Western Ave. So I don't have a photo of where it would be shown, but it's basically at the intersection.
So
it's
my
shown on the
question
plans.
is buses. How far can kids walk to a bus stop? How far is it? Do you know how far kids can walk to a bus stop?
Oh, I don't know no.
I was only looking
I
because
don't
I
think,
thought you might.
yeah,
have
no,
an
I
idea.
I'm not actually sure we have a limit. Buses don't even come down Lufkin Street. You have to make your way to
Okay.
Harlow or
Some buses seem they pick up miles and some they seem to go door to door, so that's why I asked. If they're gonna have to go through, I'm just thinking if they have to go through, then I just want to make sure that.
Yeah, and we added this at the
So
request.
there is a limit on how far you can walk.
Excuse me?
I'm just saying I don't know what it is.
There is a limit on how far you have to walk. Yeah. I think it's like half a mile.
So should we check on that?
Yeah?
Probably.
Well, go ahead, you know.
I don't know the limit on that, but I do know that there is also, like, within 2 miles, we're not required to provide bus service 2 miles as the crow flies, and this would probably fall into that, so you would end up paying to have bus service there anyway, so it may not be an issue.
Okay, I just think we should ask that question.
We can
to
find
whoever
that out.
We should, instead of finding out after you're 3/4 of the way done that we gotta change something. That's the only reason why I raised it.
Yep, we'll check into that.
Yeah. And it's not just bus service to elementary, it's bus service to middle school.
That's true.
Right.
Okay, moving along to the drainage comments. These were kind of more technical in nature. We have provided calculations to basically have a cleaning velocity, more or less. You have to maintain a 2.5 to 10 foot or 2 foot per second. Basically, a self-cleaning is what they call it. So if something does, hopefully nothing, it's all supposed to be caught in the catch basins or the treatment units. But if something did get into the pipes, you basically have a velocity requirement to allow those pipes to self-cleanse and basically maintain free-flowing water. So we provided that documentation that is included. There's a whole section of calculations, and that's in response to some of these comments. So we have that velocity for the 2-year, the 25-year, and as well as the 100-year storm event. The next comment regards the use of HDPE pipe instead of RCP. We have requested a waiver for that. And as I had mentioned previously, the Essex stormwater bylaw actually allows the use of HDPE or RCP. However, the subdivision regs do require RCP. So again, we're here for the waiver to use the HDPE.
Can I ask what the preference, why the preference?
HDPE is kind of the new industry standard. It's used generally at any development besides a lot of municipal towns. A lot of the towns' bylaws are very old, from the 70s and the 80s, where RCP more or less was the longevity pipe of choice versus asbestos concrete or something to that type. It's a lot easier to work with, it's more readily available, and the longevity is just the same, if not longer, life expectancy of the pipe itself.
Did the board get a comment from DPW on that?
Not yet. That was on my list of things that I haven't done yet, sorry.
And as I mentioned, the DPW enforces the stormwater bylaw, which allows the use of HDPE pipe.
It is pretty standard.
I'm sorry, Val?
It is pretty standard to use the HDPE type of pipe as they're describing.
Thanks.
The next comment related to the Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook compliance. So again, speaking with the peer reviewer, they were in agreement that additional test pits within the basins themselves. We have extensive testing, however, by the regulation, there are certain, you need 3 test pits per basin, whereas some of them we have 2. We just request that be a condition of approval. And again, there's some technical responses to some of these comments. The 2-foot separation, so what we ended up doing to eliminate the requirement for a groundwater mounting calculation, we raised the bottom of our basin, so now we have a 4-foot separation to groundwater or refusal, so that adequately addressed those comments in that section. There was also just clarification. We provided the calculation to demonstrate that we do infiltrate 65% of the overall impervious area. So you have a contributing area, and that is provided in the stormwater management calculations. The next comment regards TSS calculations that we provided. So we have revised our calculations to show that we have adequate pretreatment as well as the overall treatment going through the stormwater BMP systems. We do comply to the regulations with that. We also were able to get a hold of and provide the New Jersey CAT technology verification, which is a third party that basically demonstrates the TSS removal efficiency of these proprietary systems. So we have provided that documentation in the response as well. The next one is just relative to adding some additional information in the HydroCAD models, the stormwater model. So we have incorporated or had that printout in the revised plans that basically just shows that the areas in the existing conditions was the same. So basically apples to apples when we did our analysis.
And when you say plans, you're talking about plans that are in the stormwater calculations, not the...
It's not, it's the stormwater summary, so the HydroCAD model, so it's the way we model the stormwater systems. So yeah, it's within that. It's not on the plans
It's
set. It's standalone. It's stormwater calculation.
Right, yeah, okay.
The next one regards the infiltration basin embankments. We had talked to the peer reviewer about this as well, and he was in agreement. A project of this size, there will be a geotechnical, if we get approvals, will be involved, more or less just to confirm, they're going to be designing retaining walls, making sure that the foundations are adequate for the houses. So at that time, it's something that they would be overseeing the construction of these basins, making sure they're not putting in material that could potentially blow out or erode. Again, everything will be constructed within those Mass DOT standards as well, so there's compaction requirements, material requirements of what you can actually use to construct these embankments for the basins themselves. There was a comment regarding the existing pond that is closer to Turtleback. We initially modeled it, we had kind of historic data that we were using, record information. We went out based on the comments, and we actually went out and located the pipe ourselves. So it modified things slightly. Instead of extending the pipe as we initially thought, the pipe actually is going to get removed at the crossing and basically replaced. So there's just a section of pipe that we initially were extending, however, now it's just going to get removed, the RCP, and when we go to build this, it will just be a new pipe will be set. And we also confirmed some of the elevations coming out of the existing pond. So when we modeled it, it actually was a little higher, so there's actually more storage. So we were slightly conservative previously, but with the new data, we've modeled it correctly. The next comment regards the infiltration trench. And what we did is we basically expanded the width of the shoulder of the road. So you have a 2.5, we used to have 2.5 feet width, so you have a stone trench, and now we increased that, so now there's basically going to be a little bit of earth behind that trench. We also added an impervious barrier going down the trench to basically force any water runoff that's going into the trench to go down into the ground rather than potentially breaking out of the slope. So this is just kind of, it's shown on the detail sheet with the impervious barrier. But on the emergency access road, if you go to, it's hard to see on the plans, but it is there. It's, a 40 scale moving something 1.5 feet. A little hard to see, but we did expand the width of that as much as practicable. There is a section as we basically get to the wetland crossing. We had to narrow it down just because we didn't want to fill more wetlands. But with the impervious barrier, it will basically force any runoff to go into the ground at that location. The next comment was regarding what they call curve numbers in the hydrologic soil groups that we use. So the sites, any site is typically mapped by the NRCS and it defines the hydrological soil group based on a number of factors.
What's the
underlying.
NRCS?
The NRCS is the
It's a trick
Conservation
question.
Society. It's the national, basically they are the soil people of the country. So USDA, they're under the USDA, yeah, National Resource,
Conservation Service.
yeah. So it's under the USDA, but that's basically, they map the whole country with the soils and the hydrologic soil groups, and it's pretty accurate of what you can expect. They use geological periods and landforms, and then they have testing, extensive testing throughout that they've done over the last, 100 years or so. And that's how they develop the hydrologic soil groups. So for this site itself, it's a hydrologic soil group C and D, which basically, if you have an A, that means that it's very well drained, and as you get to a D, it means it's not as well drained. So the land itself isn't able to absorb as much water. And that's just something that is used in the modeling. So with the C and a D, you have a higher rate of runoff versus if you had an A or a B, you have less likely for runoff. So I went through and kind of explained why we used what we did based on the maps. And then I also provided a reference to the USDA Hydrology National Engineering Handbook, which basically is a summary that defines how they came up with these hydrologic soil groups, and references how they determine them. And it's not necessarily just based on if you have a sand, it's an A, or if you have a loam, it's a D. There's a lot more science to it, and it's all relative to basically the underlying soils restrictions and basically how much water can get in there. When we perform in situ testing, so at the location of these basins, we figure out the soil texture of where we're going to be infiltrating stormwater. That's how you design stormwater systems to infiltrate. In the Mass Stormwater Handbook, everything is based on what they call the Rawls rates, which were determined based on the textural class of the soil, and that's how we designed our stormwater basins. The next comment regarded some of how we modeled the recharge systems. We have gone back and we've revised those, so hopefully that comment will be addressed. We basically just lowered and had the outlet pipe more conventionally designed, and that should address that comment there. There was another comment regarding the pipe velocities. So again, that is in the calculations for the 2-year storm event. The next comment regarded grading and the limit of work. We just basically demonstrate or noted that, yes, we understand that there's a limit of work, and how are we going to build it? Well, that's kind of the defining factor. Machines aren't going to be allowed to go on the other side to build this. The limit of work will be there. It's a fill condition, so basically you start and build up from that limit of work. So you start at the base and work yourself back into the site. So I believe that will be addressed as well. Again, this next comment was regarding the geotechnical review of the construction of the embankments. As I stated, the walls and the basins and the site itself, there will be a geotechnical involved. Everything will be overseen by a PE as well. At the end of the day, either me or another professional engineer is going to have to certify and sign off on this, that everything was constructed in compliance and there's no issues. So we just request that would be part of the condition of approval. And I believe there will be a third party observing clerk of the works of some sort. So I think that will help address some of these issues as well. The next comment regarded some of the access berms. They actually asked why we had them 20 feet wide, so we just reduced them to 10 feet wide, which allowed kind of the basins to accommodate a little bit more volume in them. And one of the reasons that you'll see is that we actually were able to eliminate one of the stormwater basins. It was previously 4P, I believe. And that it was a result of kind of the overall grading of the site, where water was going, how water was going there. But if you remember, it was behind lot 13 and lot 14, we had a stormwater basin basically
Oh, right
more or
here.
less cut into the slope. That basin has been completely eliminated from the design. With that, what happens is on Road D, initially we basically had half of Road D getting collected and piped to that basin, and the other half going down to the end of the road behind lots 15 and 16. So what we ended up doing, because we were able to eliminate that, we extended that closed drainage network system up Road D, so now everything is collected and goes down all the way. So it was an additional couple catch basins and a manhole, but everything is now collected from Road D and goes down to that basin at the back behind 15 and 16.
Up here. So this is the one where my cursor is, that's
Correct.
the one that is eliminated?
Yep, so that pond is no longer there. So all that earthwork, because that was basically a big fill, we
Right.
had to build it out, and you'll see the slope drastically kind of dives off. So in order to catch that grade, we were basically chasing that thing all the way to the toe. So it was a lot of earthwork that we have removed from the project. The next comment was regarding the drainage easements. Those easements have been updated on our site plans. I did note that we haven't had a chance to update the lotting plans, but all the easements will be updated on the lotting plans as well prior to final endorsement of the plans. The next comment requested that we provide what they call anti-seep collars on the pipes in the basins. What those do is basically when you build something with a pipe, you put pipe bedding in, which is typically a coarse granular material that is tendency to convey water. And the fact that we're holding water back in these ponds, they wanted to ensure that that water stays in the ponds and doesn't go down, it's not going through the pipe, it would basically be running either along, below, or on top of the pipe through that bedding material. So we have shown that there will be anti-seepage collars, which are basically just a clay bentonite type of material that is placed around the pipe in the bedding and prevents water. So it just is an impervious barrier, more or less, at the embankment to make sure that water is not leaving the pond. The next comment we had just noted, I'm not sure if they didn't see it, but we do have construction details for each of the basins. You'll see that the plan set actually, we did note on the cover sheet that we removed that pond detail for the pond that was removed, but there's individual sheets for all the basin construction details, which include the outlet control structures as well. So, yeah.
Those are these sheets, right?
Yeah, all those sheets. So that basically shows, it's just a zoomed in version. It shows your outlet control structure, your emergency spillway wear, the flared end section, the riprap associated with those, the orifices on the outlet control structures. So these are kind of the construction details for each individual basin. The next comment just requested, we had calculated the riprap, but they wanted us to show graphically the actual dimensions. So all the flared end sections now have graphically show the riprap sizing. So the width and the length of the apron itself, and then the stone sizes are all shown as well. So the D50 we call it. So basically the riprap, which is an energy dissipator for water leaving a pipe.
So that's this?
So that was shown before. What we did is, like, on the plans themselves, again, it's a 40 scale, it's really hard to see, but if you scaled that flared end section 4 inside that pipe, that would match the dimensions that we show on the detail, the not to scale detail. So that is now to scale on the plans. The next comment regarded the location of the discharge of the flared end section. So we adjusted everything so they now basically discharge at the bottom of the slope rather than at a mid-slope location, and that's just to prevent additional potential erosion. So the plans have been updated to incorporate that. The next comment, as I mentioned, we were able to eliminate 4P so that there was a comment that there was constructability concerns associated with that pond itself, so eliminating that pond basically satisfies this comment. The next comment regards access within structures. Based on discussions with the peer reviewer, we came to an agreement that if the structure is greater than 10 feet in depth, we would increase the size of the manhole from a typical 4-foot interior to a 5-foot. So there will be a 5-foot structure if it's greater than 10 feet. And that is just for, hopefully would never happen, but there would be more accessible for a person to get into. It's still a confined space, but it gives them a little bit more room because of the depth. The next comment, there was a scrivener's error on the plan. For some reason, the curbing got frozen, so we have revised it to show a curb on what we call a level spreader for the emergency outlets. So that is detailed on all those drainage plans. We basically call out the actual curb, and that just promotes even flow of water when it would leave these ponds in the event that there was failure of the outlet control structure. These emergency spillways are designed to never have water leaving during what we model as a 100-year storm. However, if something did block the pipe or block these orifices and it backed up, then it would have adequate area to basically leave that pond and not back up. The next comment regarded the occupancy permit. I think this was discussed, and we are in agreement that this can be a condition of approval. The next one is regarding, I think, again, to the building permits in the individual building lots and the surface cap area, kind of have what we discussed, that those will be reviewed during the building permit applications. The next one is regarding the automatic gates. I don't think the peer reviewer saw that we did have locations shown on the plans for the automatic gates. And we do have a note, we've revised a note that, or request that part of the approval, a condition of approval, would be that the gates are satisfactory to the Essex Fire Department, the Police Department, the DPW, as well as Kinder Morgan. So we haven't specified an exact gate yet because we don't know what's going to be available when they do go to construct this, but we would request that a condition of approval is that those departments are in agreement with whatever we choose. Based on preliminary discussions, they do want an RFID kind of access gate, so an automatic gate, so when they drive up, they don't have to get out and unlock it. And we were in agreement with that. And again, the gate will be determined kind of at a later time, but it would have to be signed off by all these departments. The next comment was just responding that we did provide the FEMA floodplain map and the floodplain elevation in the technical report. They must have not seen it, but it is in there, and it does demonstrate that we're outside of the Zone A, and also based on a determination of the elevation of the Zone A at this site, all the development is above that, so we're not working within the floodplain. Again, this was regarding the cuts, the fills, and the difference, the 4-foot separation. So again, we request that this be a condition of approval. The next comment was regarding the septic system. We just acknowledge that it will have to be basically approved by the Board of Health. Again, that can be a condition of approval, but the project needs approval from the Board of Health to move forward with any of the construction of any of the dwellings. The next comment regarded the monumentation on the OSRD open space area. So we have depicted on the OSRD zoning plan the proposed monumentation locations. Again, we haven't formalized, but we are proposing, a permanent monumentation, which is a typical either a concrete bound, a cedar post, or an approved equal. So if you, on the plan, more or less it goes around the boundaries of the rear lot lines, depicting kind of a visual for folks that live there or people that are using the open space of where the limit is established.
And so what do those actually look like?
So they're hard to see, but if you zoom in, say at lot 31, if you go to the very tip of that corner, you'll see there's a little square.
Okay, but I mean, it will be something physically out there?
It's a physical monument, so it's either going to be like a cedar post or concrete bound, which is typically like a 6x6 or a 4x4 concrete post. A monumentation that is typical with a property boundary line.
Okay. When do those go in?
They would probably go in right away so they can determine where the lot lines are. It's almost a selling point, and that's what we did, and we thought it made the most sense is instead of putting an iron rod or an iron pipe at the lot line corners, in the rear lot line, you'll basically, most of these lots will have the monumentation. So somebody could go out there and basically pull a string from monument to monument and know that's their property boundary and defines the open space. There are some restricted lots, such as lot 30, where we couldn't put it in the corner because that's in a wetland. So you can't do anything in that wetland regardless, so our thought was we just pulled that back to help define that open space area. The next comment regarded the open space sign detail. We did include a kiosk detail on our plans, just kind of a preliminary thought of what we would be providing. That would be located basically at the parking area that we have proposed. And based on the planning board comments at the last meeting, we have also added a proposed sign, directional sign for the open space at the entrance to the development. So that is shown on the site plan.
Which plan is that?
Sheet number 30. So, yeah, you'll see that we have.
Okay, so
yep,
here's proposed open space directional sign.
Yep, so that will basically just have some kind of signage that will note that the open space is up through the development, as well as the monument sign for the actual development itself.
So then there's also, okay, so here's proposed open space parking, proposed trail kiosk.
Correct.
App kiosk, okay.
Yeah, and the kiosk, you'll see on the details, we try to model, we've used this a couple times, it's very similar to like the Essex Greenbelt type. It's almost like a little slight roof structure, kind of has a map on it, just a typical, this is the open space, these are the trails, this is where you are kind of thing. The next comment regards the open space. This has been discussed with the board, and we would request that this be a condition of the approval. It's commenting on the maintenance requirements, and I know that we previously have discussed this in depth. The next comment was noting that they thought that a land disturbance permit would be required. However, our understanding is that the planning board, by the bylaw section 5A4, the planning board's issued definitive subdivision permit, final approved plans, and/or applicable special permit or site plan review and associated permit conditions must require compliance with the stormwater management bylaw and the associated regulations. A separate land disturbance permit will not be required. So it's our understanding that the approval of the definitive subdivision would not require a separate land disturbance permit. The next comment regards the nitrogen requirement, which is part of the Essex stormwater bylaw. And we just noted that we comply to that per the regulation that allows you to store 1 inch volume of the total impervious area and infiltrate that. So we had demonstrated that in our stormwater management calculations. The next comment, again, regards test pits, and as previously noted, we request this be included as a condition of the approval. In the next one after that regards, once again, the velocities in the pipe, and that's demonstrated on our revised calculations. The next comment regards what we call freeboard of the ponds. We have designed these ponds to include, now they have a 1 foot of freeboard, so basically 1 foot of storage above the 100-year storm elevation. Most of the ponds, besides 2P, have 1.5 feet, so they have more than adequate amount of freeboard. Based on just some of the constraints, 2P has 1 foot 3 inches of freeboard, so greater than the 1 foot, so compliant with that regulation. The next comment regarded the double catch basins or double graded catch basins based on the subdivision regulations. So we have added CB1 and CB2 to show that they will be double graded inlets. And these are all noted on the plans with the DG call out. And it's also shown on the typical catch basin detail that if they are a double grate, that they will be a 5 foot diameter structure, which is just easier to construct and more typical. So if you have a double grate, you have a larger structure itself. Moving on to the traffic. We responded to some of these comments. Some of them include plan changes, as well as there's a separate document that we have submitted that was prepared by the traffic engineer in response to these comments. So quickly going through them. Yes, correct. So you'll see that in my letter, I answered things that are pertinent to the plans, and then there's a couple comments that are noted in his actual comment response letter. So moving through these comments, the first one was noted that the current conditions on Essex Park Road at the intersection of Western Ave just has a stop bar and does not have a stop sign. So we have now proposed to add a stop sign on the pole, I believe it's a pole or signpost at that intersection, kind of as a additional visual for people to know to stop at that intersection. The next comment, I had touched on this about the proposed crosswalk and ADA accessible ramps across Western Ave. So those have been added to the plan on the site plan. The next comment regarded the entry driving into the development from Essex Park Road. It was recommended that we better define this, and we have discussed this with the peer reviewer, and we have added a 4-inch white stripe that basically turns, instead of driving straight into a dead end, it will help direct traffic down the development rather than Essex Park Road. So it's just a stripe. People that are parking and going to 7 Essex Park Road can still get there. It's still accessible, but it's more of a visual aid for people driving down that going up. The road is basically a dead end, so turn here. The next comment regarded within the development, we had a crosswalk going to the mail kiosk. Looking at this, we've actually came up with the idea to relocate the mail kiosk further into the development. And what we did is actually added a turnoff. So if you keep panning up, it's close to the intersection of Road B. Yeah, so right up there, you'll see. So
Right here?
Yep. So what this does is it serves almost two purposes. It's a better location for internal people walking to get their mail. There's a crosswalk there. The sidewalks all go there. And it also provides a turnoff now. So if somebody's coming home or leaving the development, I guess they could cross over and pull off so they're not in the right-of-way, in the roadway, and they're able to basically have an area to stop, get out of their car safely, access the mail, or if they want to walk, there's a sidewalk accessing this. There's crosswalks to get across Road A at this location. So all said and done, we believe this is a better location, although it's not right at the front of the development. Lots 1, 2, and 3 might have to walk up or drive up a little bit further, but it serves the same intent for the mail.
Have you talked with the post office about that?
We have not yet.
That does need to be confirmed by them.
Yep, my understanding is that any private development will be a community mailbox versus individual house mailboxes, but that's...
Yeah, I believe you're right, but they also specify where they want them.
Yep, and this is something,
That's,
throughout this process, there's still legwork to do and confirmations to do, but we believe this is a good location. Again, this turnoff also provides an area for a mail carrier to park.
sure there won't be a problem, but they have to approve it, so.
Understood.
Okay, so we'll add that to the decision as far as a condition to have U.S. Post Office approval.
The next 3 comments had related to the traffic report. So there's responses that have been provided regarding the actual traffic study. I'm not the expert in that. But one thing that was requested is that the traffic impact assessment be revised to include the stamp and signature, which we have provided now. And there's also responses to some of the comments, with the crash data justifications on what they used in their calculations. I'm not the expert.
So that's why you've resubmitted the original memo, because it's stamped now?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
He just stamped and signed the original memo. So there was no changes to it. It just has the stamp and signature.
Yep, okay.
The next comment that we did revise the plans for, we added 2 notes based on the peer review comments. One of the notes is signs and landscaping adjacent to the roadway should be designed and maintained to remain below 24 inches above the driveway so as not to restrict sight lines. And then snow windrows within sight triangles of the roadway should be promptly removed where such accumulation will impede the sight lines. This is typical at any intersection. Basically, you don't want to have something that obstructs somebody from seeing around the corner. So we did add those notes to the plans. The next comment regards the environmental impact assessment. To summarize, because again, I'm not the expert, the LSP provided this comment, and basically, based on his opinion, is that no adjustments to the exposure assumptions on which the temporary solution is based are required for the residential development, more or less saying that he does not believe that there's any impact that from the contaminated site for this proposed development. The next comment regarded private drinking water wells. This project has no private drinking water wells. It's serviced by town water, so no issue with that one. The next comment regarded dewatering. We do have a dewatering detail. It's also noted that this project will require a construction general permit from the EPA, which dewatering is regulated under that permit. There is now testing requirements for daily dewatering, turbidity. So you have to have a qualified professional that goes out, basically takes a water sample and confirms that it's within the allowable discharge for turbidity, which turbidity is basically suspended solids in the water. So it's a way that it's regulated, and it's something that is going to be required as part of the project. And then the other next few comments, we just acknowledged that they made the comment. It had to do with the soils. A lot of the soils is going to be regulated. That's a typical state, federal level. Knowing what soils you have, making sure that you don't have contaminated soils you're taking off site and bringing somewhere or bringing them in. So they have a I can't remember the exact term, the something of laden, basically telling them where the soil comes from, making sure that it is okay, it's been tested. And again, that's to make sure that there's no contaminated soil coming in or off the site without anyone's knowledge.
Is that the manifest or whatever they call it?
It's the bill of lading, I believe. So basically, the source that it comes from is,
Yeah, it's some kind of tracking,
it's a way to track and make sure that
clean.
it comes down to liability too, right? So if somebody says they have clean soil and they give you a clean bill of lading, whatever it is, and it's not clean, then there's an issue. You can trace back to where that soil came from. The next comment regarded stockpiles. We do show the proposed stockpile locations. This is what we're anticipating. However, these might be adjusted based on a contractor and the phasing of the project. But again, the stockpiles, we're going to have a construction general permit. Those are also regulated under the construction general permit. For example, you can't have a stockpile that has no activity for 14 days without being stabilized with temporary vegetation. So that is all going to be regulated under the construction general permit as well. The next comment regarded dust control. Again, that will be under construction general permit, and as well as a lot of these, the dewatering, the stockpile, and the dust control. This is all outlined in our construction phase operation and maintenance plan that has been submitted as well. So that's something, during construction, there's an operation and maintenance plan for the stormwater pollution control. And then there will be a final, basically long-term stormwater pollution prevention control plan as well. That is already been submitted. And then the last comment regards the existing culvert. I believe we had discussed this last meeting as well. We just noted that we did do an inspection, and I believe we had discussed that there will be a pre-construction meeting and a post-construction meeting with town officials and the developer, basically documenting the conditions of Essex Park Road, the pavement, as well as the culvert itself. And that's the conclusion of the letter. I just, at the end of it, I did outline kind of all the documentation that was submitted with this revised, the plans as well as, so we have the plans and then we have the stormwater material, which includes the existing and proposed HydroCAD, a summary of the peak discharge rates and volumes, the revised watershed map, the revised stormwater calculations, TSS calculations, pipe sizing calculations, riprap sizing calculations, the third-party documentation for the TSS that I mentioned, the wetland district overlay sketch, the peer review responses prepared by Vanessa, the Essex Park Road photo exhibit that we took a look at earlier, as well as the signed and sealed traffic impact assessment. So those are all the changes that were done over the last few weeks here. So it's a lot.
Yep, it is a lot. But thank you for walking us through it. It's helpful just to wrap our brains around it. Planning board members, do you have any questions on this now? So the next step is Weston and Sampson receives all this material also, and they will prepare a review of the responses, the same way that they did a review originally. They'll give us another memo. We went through this in the preliminary phase too, where they also, when the responses came in, Weston and Sampson sort of is the last step as they review the responses to make sure that, yes, indeed, the box has been checked. So what's going to happen between now and our next meeting is we'll get that from Weston and Sampson. They've said they need about a week to go through it, so we should get that middle of next week. And based on those comments, if there's still anything outstanding, and depending on what it is, I mean, it seems like they've addressed everything here, but that's not, as far as stormwater calcs, not for us to decide. If there is anything outstanding, that would become a condition of the decision. Like if there are other, because there are conditions of the decision of things that still need to be done. So if there are other information that's still needed, at this point, that's going to be a condition of the decision because we're at that point where we need to finalize the decision at our next meeting. Our our deadline is now June, I can't believe it's June 23rd, so that captures our next meeting on the 17th, 2 weeks from tonight, when we'll finalize the decision. And at that point, we'll be going over the decision in much more detail. I'll be working with Val, and we'll highlight everything that we're adding to what we reviewed the last time. And Val has made some changes already based on our last meeting. We'll be going through that, and if there are changes that we, as a committee, still make at our next meeting, we still have time to incorporate those, the same way we approve minutes with changes, that kind of thing. Those are changes that we can still make with Teresa and Val, and then get that signed and to the town clerk before the 23rd. So that's the plan. But our next step, obviously the next step is to get the feedback from Weston and Sampson, and they received all these materials as well today. And Jesse Johnson had asked about coming to this meeting, but I said there wasn't really a purpose to it, because he, unlike us, knows what he's looking at when he looks at all these stormwater calculations. So his time is better spent doing the actual review of them than he doesn't need Will to walk him through, because he knows what he's looking at. So, any questions on all of that?
Do we, when we approve this, or have a decision, do we have to, it's not, our decision doesn't depend on where conservation is or Board of Health or anything. That
Correct.
is just ours. And
Right, because our decision, it's interesting, because I've been sitting in on the Conservation Commission, and the Board of Health doesn't have their plan yet, but we each sort of have our track, and what we're looking at is our zoning bylaw, and specifically here, the special permit that we wrote for the OSRD. So that's why it's part of the review here. They've gone through and checked the conditions that are in the special permit to make sure that the plans have reflected what we had put as conditions of the special permit. And then a lot of it is the rules and regulation for subdivision control. Rules and regulations relative to subdivision control. And that's going to be one of our new jobs, is to come up with a new name for that. So that's a lot of what Weston and Sampson has done. And then the other thing that is not normally under our purview is all the stormwater calculations. So that's the thing that I don't know anything about, and I don't think any of us really do, but that's where Weston and Sampson is crucial here, to make sure they're checking all that. So we do have, there's the Massachusetts Stormwater Standards or Regulations, whatever. There's the state,
It's the handbook.
what?
Nothing.
Oh.
Nothing. Go on.
So there's the state stormwater standards, then Essex has our own stormwater bylaw that's actually part of the town bylaws, not our zoning bylaw, but in the town bylaws. And then the DPW also has rules and regulations for stormwater control. So that's what Warren Cameron has worked through, and what Weston and Sampson is checking against, is to make sure that the stormwater management design matches all of those three standards, which is state and 2 local for that. So, any questions?
I have a question about the trailhead with the signage and the parking. Will that be maintained by the HOA?
Yeah, whoever's going to ultimately maintain it. So probably the HOA, but that's not determined. But yes, whoever's maintaining it.
And then the comment about the staying with non-invasive species, has that been incorporated into this latest set?
I am not the plant expert, so no, we haven't. I'm curious on what the invasive plant was. I really don't know, but I believe that was going to be conditioned.
Calorie pear has been added to the likely invasive list. When you go to MDR, there's categories, but it's a discouraged plant. But it is going to be, I believe, in the draft, we have a comment about it. So,
Yeah,
and that's just, I mean, literally like your name change in that.
Right, and something to, we do have a note that it will be approved by the tree warden. So if anything that's not okay will be double checked.
right. And that, you're right, Beth, it's in our decision, as a condition of the decision to not
I have
do
a
it.
comment on that, but
Okay.
we can, I mean, I don't think Will has to be. Are we going to talk about the
Yeah,
draft?
yep, we'll go through it now, yeah. I wanted to go through this and then, so the decision is, it's still a draft. There's a lot to be added, just making sure, cross-checking from this and adding all of the conditions, all of the review comments that Weston Sampson had that said should be a condition. So double-checking that as far as making sure they were all in there. So I'll be working with Val on that in this next week. So if there aren't questions for Will, we'll just move on to actually walking through this last draft of the decision to see if people have other comments, questions, concerns. Actually, Will, while you're here, what I did want to ask about is, I know last time we talked about, Simone had been asking about the 12-inch, marking the 12-inch trees along the limits of the subdivision, I guess. And I'm just curious, sort of how this is actually done in the field as far as when you go out to perform the work, not you, but when a contractor goes out to perform this work, obviously it needs to stay within the limit of the subdivision. How is that like physically controlled, marked, whatever? Because I'm just trying to understand, because I think Simone's intent is to make sure that we don't take down more trees than we should, and that we particularly protect those over 12-inch diameter trees that are right at the boundary of this, of the property. So I'm trying to understand what you do physically when you go out to start the project and you stake out the limits. I mean, there's the monuments here. That's kind of why I was asking about when the monuments go in, that sort of.
Yeah, so to be truthful, I was kind of waiting to read the condition. I wasn't sure exactly on what trees that they wanted to have marked or delineated. For this project, what is going to happen is prior to tree clearing, they will go out and they're going to delineate the limit of work that's shown on the plans. At that time.
So
Yep.
I'm being particular. When you go out and delineate it, like, are you spraying pink spray paint on the ground? Are you marking all the trees? Are you laying out lines? What?
Yeah, so what happens is we go out and delineate it. So it's survey located. So they'll go out and they'll tell somebody, this is where we're going to put our erosion control. They follow up and they put the erosion control in. That erosion control stays in for the full project. So that
Okay.
limit of work, it has a defined boundary of the different erosion control types we have. There's silt fence, silt sock. We're proposing basically a mulch berm. So the mulch berm will come after, but they'll have some type of erosion control that is installed at the limit of work, and that's going to define the boundary of the project from the day it gets installed until basically it's finalized.
Okay, so everything we see on this plan, whether it's,
If you look, there's the little squares going around, and then there's a dash line. That encompasses the limit of all the grading work, and which basically is the limit of clearing.
okay. And so what is the little squares are the hay bales?
If you scroll up to the top of that plan,
Yeah. Sorry, I
I
just.
don't want to say it wrong.
This is-
Keep going a little bit to the right. So there's your erosion control. So we got a mulch sock with the mulch berm, and then a mulch sock back with reinforced silt fence. So what that is there are different types of erosion controls, but they're physical barriers that are installed. So a mulch sock is typically a 12-inch sock that is filled with mulch.
That's why they call it a mulch
Which
sock, I guess.
basically it allows water to pass through, but,
Right, but
stops the sediment from going through. So that will be kind of a physical barrier that's installed, and will define the limit of the clearing, the limit of work, the limit of grading, the limit of the project extents.
I guess I have a question. So accidents happen. Sometimes trees get removed when they're not supposed to be. those trees have value. We can seek compensation for trees for work outside of the erosion control zone, the limit of work. So I guess the concern, and Simone raised it, but I've been thinking about it, is if there's no survey of those individual trees and those accidents that sometimes happen, we have no knowledge of, no way to assess that tree. So an oak is going to, a 30-inch oak might be worth more than, some other junky tree. So I think that, to me, gets to the heart of why you might survey a section beyond the limit of work, so that if an accident happened, value can be assigned to those trees that were accidentally removed.
Okay, I understand. I guess, I'm thinking that if we're going to be out there, so part of the construction general permit too is that there's going to be somebody that goes out there weekly to inspect the erosion controls, make sure that they're in place, in the right place, functioning. There's going to be a third-party reviewer. So if somebody did, say, creep over that limit of work, I think it would be pretty obvious. You would see a stump of some sort right off the bat. And typically what happens on these projects is that they will go in and they'll do all the clearing, and that's kind of it for the clearing. They do it all at one swing, and what's remaining remains.
Okay.
But
there does sometimes happen, if you cut trees, they get a wind load, they will snap or fall down, trees fall in the woods. So I understand it, and if that's going to be part of the conditions, that's something we would probably request that while we're doing the stakeout work, that we would just kind of locate as we go, and then we can provide that plan.
So all the erosion control will be put in before any clearing takes place.
I believe that's the plan, is to basically set the erosion control and have that define the limit of work. We might only start with the mulch stock because branches fall. We don't want to put in a silt fence and basically have a branch fall and destroy it. But
there'll be something
there'll be some kind of delineation regardless out in the field, and that's something too. If the third-party reviewer, he'll see them and he'll be able to kind of confirm where we are clearing to.
Okay.
And one more, and that's the limit of work shown on this plan, even though we're really just approving the road. So you're doing the clearing of the whole site? What is the sequence?
Yes, and there's a couple reasons. Obviously, we have stormwater infrastructure that's outside of the roadway.
Yep.
But the overall site work is a cut fill. So they go out, they'll clear, they'll stump, and then they start doing the earthwork. So they'll strip the topsoil, stockpile it, and then start doing the cut fills for the overall site. They can't just go in, especially on this site where we do have some larger cut fills. They can't build a road and then just have it drop off. So they'll actually rough grade the lots. They're not going to final grade anything, but they'll kind of rough grade everything at once.
If there is a 30-inch oak on the limit of work line, what kind of effort is made to save that tree? Or
yeah, so
like you mentioned earlier, at 40 scale, it's kind of tough to.
Of course. So typically, as somebody that oversees this stuff, we stake out a limit of work. If it falls in the middle, you are conservative, and your erosion control goes on the other side. So you save the tree. Right. There are potentially, though, we always like to save the larger trees, specimen trees. But in some of the instances, we leave them. But if you do have a fill and it's over the root system, it could potentially kill it or a cut. But on this site particularly, I don't think there are any 30-inch oaks that I've seen. It has been clear cut probably 50 years, 40 years ago. But yeah, we try to preserve them. And again, the limit of work, sometimes we're grading to it, but it's only, there's not a lot of work there. We clear up to it, and the trees do survive.
I was just curious when you were talking about how when you clear cut it, I know there's a lot of granite there. There will be dynamite to blow up sections and...
There's potential that they might have to blast. That's going to be something that they're going to have to, when we get further down the process. We don't know exactly where all the bedrock. There's rock out there. Depends on the rock too. Sometimes it can be weathered bedrock, and if it's weathered, you can get a machine to hammer or rip it. Or sometimes blasting is the most efficient. But blasting is something that I don't know how to do it, but there's a whole, they have to go do studies, and there's certain clear distances, and not the expert in it, but there's potential that they might have to blast.
And how about if it's closer to Essex Park Road, where there's houses and stuff?
Yep, so that's all regulated. There's pre-blast surveys, they call them, that basically, if they're going to be blasting, the blasting company will come in and do a survey of your foundation, of your windows, document that. After everything's done, they go back and follow up and make sure there's no damage.
Never refuse one.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, you can refuse them. They're not liable. It's something that if they, you obviously, if you have a house you want, and somebody's doing something that potentially could damage it, you want to make sure that they're.
I've seen one case where they did refuse it, and they had an issue in the area, and everybody got paid by him.
Would that blasting though ever change if there's aquifers or flow of wetlands, like how it is redistributed? You know, as you take out bedrock, like it.
Typically, if they're blasting, the rock is very solid, so the groundwater is not really penetrating or influenced by that bedrock.
Okay.
Alrighty. Okay, Simone, are you there?
She is right now.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So you've heard this discussion about the perimeter of the property and how it's going to be staked out. So when you're looking, you know, you've talked about in the decision having that condition of, sorry, I'm just looking for my copy of it, about
Marking the trees at the boundary.
right, individual trees over 12-inch diameter at breast height excluding blah, blah. So what kind of limit, I guess, like if they were to go around the perimeter, once the perimeter of the site is laid out, like how far beyond that limit would we be looking at the trees? You know, does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, they had sort of laid out a squiggly line to indicate where the trees would be. And so I'm just suggesting that instead of a squiggly line, they mark trees that is representative of where they think the limit is. I mean, obviously where the septic is, we've called that open space. So those will all be cut down. Just trying to define where they're going to stop cutting down trees, you know, so that we know. It's really unclear right now where it is. And they're saying the limit of construction is going to define XYZ, but it doesn't really define where we stop cutting trees. You know, they could decide to cut 20 more feet out to just have more space. And I just want to know where the tree line is going to be.
But from what Will has said, though, that the limit of work is the property line between the developed area and the open space, and you wouldn't be cutting trees beyond that.
Okay.
And
So we're saying that line is the limit. There's no trees beyond that are going to be cut.
exactly, that's the intent. And I'm just trying to think of how we can craft that into the decision so that,
But they're not defining that line until construction starts.
correct. But
So
that's
we don't know where that line is. That's all I'm saying. We don't know where that line is.
Well, that line would need to be established before any clearing. And that can be a condition in our decision that says before any work, the very first step is to establish the perimeter of the site. And then at that point, it seems like even just walking the perimeter of the site and saying, I'm just trying to think of a way to.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is if there is contained open space, where that open space starts. You know, we're saying there's a certain percentage of the property is open space, but we don't really know where that is right now. There is an imaginary line that is defining the open space. Now, if they want to set the monuments and call the rest of it open space, you know, does that make sense? Like,
Lisa,
right now, we've got a squiggly line that is defining the limit of open space. So we don't really know where the open space starts. You know,
Lisa,
is it actually the contained space? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with you, with Simone. But couldn't we, typically what I would see is a surveyor go out there, they stake it, right? Because we wouldn't want to put out erosion controls because there's also grubbing involved, right? So you got to clear out all the underbrush and all these other things. So typically they'd stake it. Once they stake it, couldn't we also condition it that they'd go and put surveyor's tape on any tree that's over whatever the requirements are here, 12-inch diameter, so that we would know, hey, here are our stakes, this is where our erosion controls are going to go. Now all the trees beyond here are going to be marked with tape. And then at the end of construction, the tape comes off, we know they didn't ruin those trees. That's just one way of doing it.
So are you suggesting they could do that and put those stakes and those trees on a plan so that we know where it is?
And I think that would solve what you and Beth are proposing.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds
So
reasonable.
at least they're surveyed, then physically in the field, which is really the most important part, is that we have surveyor's tape on them.
Right, yeah.
All right.
And
All
it sounds, rather than doing it ahead of time, it would still be done ahead of time, but it would be done when they lay out the survey for the perimeter of the developed area. And at that point, when they're laying that out, they can mark the trees that are over 12 inches and tape them, and those can be a photographic record or something of the trees that fall into that category. Does that seem to make sense? Simone, do you think that works?
So that's after our vote, essentially.
I'm sorry?
That would be after our vote, is what you're saying?
No, I'm saying, I think it could get written as a condition.
Yeah, it would be a condition. It's
Yeah.
not ours to do.
I think, yeah, so it wouldn't be after the vote, Simone.
Okay.
It would be during the first step. Well, the first thing that they're going to have to do when they go out there to do work is lay out the limit of the developed area so that they know where they're working. And at that point, that is when those trees that are beyond that limit get marked and documented. I mean, we can do a photographic. I don't know if you have thoughts on that, Will. I mean,
Yeah, if we were going to go out and you wanted to have them located, I would recommend that we have a certain distance off the limit of work that you want, 10 feet.
Right.
And then we would put them on a plan, and we can provide a plan of the survey tree locations.
Yeah, an as-built kind of or an as-grown of the trees that we're looking to protect.
It would be an as-built of the trees that are going to remain on the outside of the limit of work.
Outside, right, yeah, like a 10-foot perimeter, a 10-foot band beyond the limit of work, pick out the 12-inch trees there, and then just put them on a plan.
Yeah, we can do that.
Does that sound reasonable?
And so we can define 10 feet. That's the extent. Uh-huh.
I mean, 10 feet
Yes,
seems
great.
reasonable.
I think that's a good compromise. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was the one thing in our decision too that I wanted to ask you about, Will, because just the process of when you start to do the work, and Matt makes a good point too, is even there's going to be some amount of site work just to be able to put the mulch stocks in, because you can't just go out and start laying them on
Yeah,
all the stuff
and
that's out
typically
there.
that involves your land clearing sub would handle that.
Yeah, and even when you're starting to do that, there's going to be some amount of small trees that get cut down in that process as you're just getting equipment out there.
Yeah. The typical of what will happen is when the erosion control line would be staked out, and then a contractor would come in with either a small excavator or a bobcat. It's a lot of material you have to be bringing back and forth. For a silt fence, you actually have to trench that in. So they take a small excavator, you go down 6 inches. So if they basically go stake to stake and drive a straight line more or less. So if there's shrubs or anything, they would clear those, but it's basically at that line.
Right.
And then they would install the erosion control.
Yeah, and they're still going to need to do some clearing just to get equipment in.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going to be required to. If you
Yeah.
going to have small things come down and
Right, and so there's going to be some work that happens before the boundary is established.
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
they'll stake it out, and then we can follow up. Basically, once it's staked out, the surveyors they'll know exactly where they are. So, as they're doing it, I think that would be the most efficient. They would be staking and basically locating the trees as they go.
Okay.
So they'll have a line, and they know where they are with their instruments. That they'll be able to say, all right, this tree's within 10 feet, 10 feet.
Yeah,
They'll locate
and they'll know what the 10 feet is
So-
because they're surveyors.
Correct.
I would say the one thing that is contrary to, alternate to that, or that's not a good word for it, but is any trees along Apple Street, right? Those trees have a special condition, not necessarily related to your open space. So I don't know where that limit of work, does that limit of work 10 feet out hit Apple Street? That those trees are protected in a different way.
Scenic byway.
Yeah.
Simone, I don't think we ever hit Apple Street, though.
No, we're not near Apple
I don't
Street.
think it abuts.
It never gets close to it.
No. We don't get past Turtleback.
It only hits Turtleback. Okay.
During the silt fence being put in, or the sock along the boundary, no large trees are going to be removed, right? You'll go around any large trees at that point.
If they're on the line, you
Yeah,
hold.
you
You're
just kinda
conservative, and you basically
Dodge
go
around them to that
Yeah.
point, right?
Yeah, and again, based on my site visits, I don't
There's not
think
much.
there's any really large specimen trees. They basically clear cut this probably 40 years ago, is my guess. There's old logging roads, but all the trees, maybe the biggest one is maybe an 18-inch. There might have been some 20, 24-inch pines, but no really nice specimen trees that you would typically see around town.
All right, thank you. Okay, so board members, let's just sort of walk through the decision draft here. There's still, as I said, based on the responses that Warren Cameron's given, and then also what Weston and Sampson comes back, there's going to be another draft that has a lot more detail that captures anything that might be outstanding that we've talked about in the responses that it says needs to be a condition of the decision. So I'll be working, like I said, with Val to go through and cross-check those to make sure that we've captured everything. And then on the waivers, so actually to backtrack a little, how the process is going to go at our next meeting is we have to keep the public hearing open for the purposes of accepting materials, because whatever comes from either Moore and Cameron or Weston and Sampson has to be received in the public hearing. So at our next meeting, presumably, we will have the feedback, well, hopefully sooner than from Weston and Sampson. We'll hopefully get it next week sometime so that whatever needs to be incorporated into the draft decision can be added. But then when we reconvene the hearing at our next meeting, we will officially receive that material. We will have a conversation with Jesse. He'll either be here or online to talk about any concerns, outstanding concerns that he either does or does not have. So we'll hear that. And then I will be taking final public comment on the whole thing, and then we'll close the hearing. And then after the hearing is closed, then we deliberate about the decision. We're not going to be deliberating about the decision in the hearing. We don't have to. We get to make that decision afterwards. The purpose of keeping the hearing open is to receive the materials officially in the hearing. So we'll close the hearing as soon as public comment is done, and then we can talk about whether we want to stay up here on camera or whether we want to go downstairs and deliberate, and we'll be talking about our decision. We all know it's easier to talk downstairs because we're around the table in the
We
conversation.
should stay up here.
Hmm?
We should stay up here.
On camera, you're saying, as for the
I
decision.
think that's just my opinion.
It kind of feels right because this whole process is, just till we reach a vote on our decision. So everything about this process has been, recorded on the 1623 tapes. But the hearing will be closed at that point, and then we deliberate on our decision. And if there's still changes that we want to make, things that we want to add, we add those to the draft that we're working with, and we vote on that draft, and then that will be circulated for everyone to just concur. But after everyone's okay with it, then outside of the meeting, I and the clerk will sign that, and that goes to Amy. So
once we approve our draft, like we have the draft, and then next week we would have a new draft.
correct,
And we'd potentially amend it during our meeting.
correct,
And approve it.
correct, as amended.
How does the process with approval or oversight from legal work then, what if we're putting something in that is not appropriate?
So the draft that we will circulate before the next meeting will have gone through council already. So in that draft form, council will have reviewed it and straightened out anything that's not correct. And then after our meeting, if we have any more changes, we'll have the intent of those changes, and if there's, when we make those changes, town council will review it again.
Will the draft that we see next week already incorporate Weston and Sampson's feedback on Marin Cameron's
That
responses?
is the intent, yeah. If there's anything if Weston and Sampson comes back and says to us, okay, comments, most of the comments were addressed, but there's 3 comments that we made that we don't feel were accurately or sufficiently addressed, not accurately, but sufficiently, like they want more information. Those 3 things will become conditions of our decision, and they will be in the draft. Assuming that Weston and Sampson gets us something next week, we have the opportunity, Val and I, to insert those into the decision. They will already be in the decision. We'll be able to talk about them to make sure that the wording is what is appropriate for whatever comment Weston and Sampson has made, but we'll have those in the draft. And that's, we're expecting now Weston and Sampson has this material. I'll check in with Jesse tomorrow to see when he expects, but before he was saying that they were going to need about a week. So I expect something middle of next week. So by the end of next week, we should have a pretty final draft, and that draft will be going to town council in advance of our next meeting, so that the draft that you see at our next meeting will be before our next meeting. Whatever draft we prepare, we will send out to everyone at the same time it goes to council. If council has any changes, we'll have a new draft before the meeting with council's changes, and that's the one we'll work on in the meeting. I'm exhausted thinking about this, but.
So waivers are going to follow that.
So, thank you, Matt. That's one of the points I wanted to make, is after we close the hearing, we vote on the waivers after we close the hearing. So that's one of the first things we'll do. As part of our decision-making is to vote on the waivers. We need to record those votes.
Because the waivers are put into the decision.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
The decision memorializes our approval of the waivers.
The way it's laid out, it just says the planning board grants the following waivers.
Because it's a draft right now. Val has written the draft with the assumption that we would,
Wait, but are we saying we have to vote on each waiver independently?
yes, we'll be voting on each waiver. Yeah, we'll be going, after the hearing's closed and when we start to discuss the decision, one of the first things that we'll do is vote on all the waivers
I was
individually.
hoping it was all wrapped in. I was hoping it was all wrapped in. But that's
No, we have to vote on the waivers, I believe. Val, if I'm mistaken, please, yeah, I think we need to make a vote on each waiver.
And so,
Because because our approval basically is saying that, yes, the application meets our bylaw and our standards, our rules and regulations. And the waivers are the things that don't meet our rules and regulations, so we specifically have to bless those, I guess, or approve them or not. I mean, there are requests for waivers, and if we don't want to grant a waiver, then we vote it down, and
If you wanted to, like administratively as a motion, the motion could be, I move the board support the waivers as presented in the draft decision, you know, to reduce the number of individual votes if that's a desire. But there should be at least one waiver vote that's separate from the decision itself of the definitive plan.
okay. So then I stand corrected, and you guys stand relieved, because we can vote for them in a lump. Unless, like, if there's one, say there's one that we weren't going to approve for whatever reason, we can vote to not approve that. Like, we'll talk about them, and if there's consensus that we're not going to approve one of them, we'll vote not to approve that one, and then we'll vote to approve the rest of them.
I'm going to muddy it again.
What's
So
that?
what, I'm going to muddy it again. So what happens if there's a variant to the waiver? We might not grant the entire waiver, but we might grant a variant to it.
Right, so if we don't,
That a decision, a condition?
You do that separately, right?
yeah, it would be written into the waiver section here that we grant, 60% of this waiver, not
A
the other 40%.
relief of this,
And
but
then
not of this. Okay.
if we're not straight up granting it, we won't be doing it in the batch vote to, like, we'll have all the waivers that we're just going to straight up approve. We'll vote on those at one time, and then if there's any that we're going to change or disapprove, we'll vote individually on those. How's that? Sound right, Val?
Yes.
Good, thanks.
So is that going to happen in 2 weeks, where we go over the waivers?
That will all happen 2 weeks from tonight, and we're not going home until we vote on all of that.
But then we're done with the
Then we're
public
done.
meetings.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's
Because we
eight-
loved them.
Eight sessions of a public hearing is onerous. It has been a slog. I will leave it at that. It's just. So is there anything else on the decision that you guys want to talk about? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to continue the hearing.
I have one quick comment, sorry, everybody.
Sure, no.
Val amended under general decision and conditions, number 2, she added B, and I don't agree with the wording there. She added, landscape plantings shall be modified to exclude plantings listed on the Massachusetts invasive species list and to include appropriate plantings. I don't believe appropriate plantings is a quantifiable description. And also what we're really approving is only street trees. So I think that should say, street trees must be native to Northeast US and, and in a natural form. Because the real issue was that they're all really skinny and they're not native, and one of them is invasive. So I think it should just be more specific, and I'd be happy to write or send text to clarify that.
That's what I was going to ask. Will you?
Great. I wrote it down in notes. Street trees shall be species native to the Northeast in natural form. But I'll still email it. I'll still email.
Yeah, we'll insert that for sure.
Unless Val has any other thoughts, like she doesn't like that verbiage.
No, that sounds great.
Thanks.
It's a group project. Okay, what?
Did Amy have any additional language for this decision based on last meeting in regards to open space and public easement?
Right, not yet. We haven't gone to Amy. She's been busy with the Concom this week.
but we will, yeah. And also, on the HOAs, we're going to make sure that however the HOAs are addressed and memorialized in here is all Amy blessed. Because that's another, a whole sort of thing that is her responsibility as far as, the HOAs are legal documents, so we're going to require that they meet with council approval for them, those documents. Because I'm not willing to review an HOA myself and say whether it's okay or not, so.
I just want to ask on number 12.
Where are you? What page?
Oh, there's no page. Oh, 7. Number 12. And it says if the open space is determined to be open to the public, there shall be a conveyance of right for public travel. And
Where are you, Shelley? I'm sorry.
number
Yeah,
12,
Number 7 on page 12.
at the bottom.
I'm sorry.
Number 12 on page 7.
Page 7,
Yeah, okay.
number 12.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there should be a right for public travel on the roadway in order to access the open space for recreational purposes and open space and water main maintenance. So she wrote that based off if it's determined to be open to the public, which means that is determined if the HOA approves the public.
No, so what Amy has said, and Val, correct me if I'm wrong, is if we can't require the developer to provide public access, but the developer has already said the intent was to provide that, and we'll be sending a draft to them as well on this to make sure that the intent is mirrors what they have in mind. But if it's the intent to allow public access for the open space, we can't require it. If the developer is going to grant that, it can be a condition of the decision, and that gets memorialized with the deed. So if the developer offers it, we can accept it, essentially. We can't require it, is how that.
Yep. All this condition is meant to address is getting rights in the way so people can travel to the parking to get to the open space. That's all the limit of,
That particular condition, right?
yep.
I have a question on the same thing. Why does it say forever remain private? Why was the word forever used?
That's an intentional word that often people use when they're trying to say, we don't intend to support you if you try to make the road public. It's another way of saying, in the future, 30 years from now, the planning board, in granting these waivers and things like that, is not going to support a petition to town meeting, a citizen's petition, for example, to make the way a public way.
Okay, but if the town decided it was beneficial to accept this, would that forever be a problem for the town to accept it?
No, because statutorily, it's a separate law that governs town street acceptance. This is just to signal the intent of the town in granting the permit at this time.
Okay, I get what you're saying. My other question is, this is conditioned on approval from other boards and commissions, from the Conservation and from
Board of
the
Health.
Board of Health.
Correct.
Can this actually be conditioned on their approval?
The way it's written and the way Amy agreed it's written properly is that if they get their, they have to get those approvals. And if there are changes subsequent during the process of getting those approvals, they have to come back and prepare and show modified plans to the planning board, whether that's a very minor change and it isn't determined, like, for example, the grate moved 4 feet over. That might not be something where we go through a public hearing process, but do like an administrative review. Or if it's significant, like the lots were changed, then that would be a modification to the subdivision that would have to go through the planning board before it could be constructed.
The
Right.
planning board with another public hearing.
Right, so I understand that. I just, I believe such as special permits, zoning special permits, can't be conditioned upon the approval of another board, and I just wasn't sure.
This
whether-
doesn't say that they have to get those approvals in terms of like, we won't grant it. We're granting with a condition that they have to get those other approvals because they do.
This isn't a special permit
I'm just,
decision.
that's all. If Amy's been over it, I'm sure it's fine, and I
She
agree
has.
with what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm just questioning the wording for that reason.
But it's not.
They're
a-
happy, I'm happy.
It's also, it's not a special permit decision.
Right,
Right,
I
yeah,
understand
yeah.
that too, yes. Yep, okay, that's all. Those only two
Okay.
questions.
So,
Matt, did you have?
Yeah, well, I thought Amy had some good, I thought what I got out of the last meeting was that she was going to have some wording to add to the conditions in regards to the public easement, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where you were headed. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to
Okay, we didn't get
coordinate
there
that with
yet,
her.
though.
Yeah.
Okay.
so just one more question on page 8, on number 15. It's just talking about the homeowners association and how, they will be in charge of all the maintaining everything, the space and the utilities. And my question is like, how do you develop a homeowners association when you've got 1 or 2, 3 people moving in, and we don't know if it's going to take a year to 2 years for enough people to elect the board or committee for a homeowners association to be developed? So in the interim, is there something else that takes?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
So once
Typically-
it's approved, the developer owns each lot, and he controls the homeowner association until he sells off, and then as he sells off a portion of so many lots, then the association will start to control it. But to that point, the developer controls everything.
But what's that percentage of people that
In the
homeowners-
end, the developer will convey to the homeowners the rights and interest in the utilities and the road and that. But up until that point, the developer's responsible to maintain everything.
To what point of how many people move in?
Until he transfers the
Until they're
control
done.
over to the road. So the developer will
Oh.
always own the road until he turns it over to the homeowner
And
association.
does that mean
It's
all
done.
lots are sold then? 36 houses
Yeah,
are
at the
sold?
end.
Then
When
it's,
you,
Yes.
right.
thank you. Thank you.
Val, did you have anything to add to that?
Sometimes they'll do a percentage, and it will be per house, and they'll have a percentage of interest in the roads as they're being developed. But the control always rests with the developer until you release that's one of the last steps that happens in a definitive plan being conveyed out, is that the road gets conveyed out to the HOA.
So the developer's on the hook to the end. He's the guy,
Yes.
you don't have to chase the homeowners. It's always going to be the developer.
And in this case, he will own the road and the drainage structures, the things that aren't lots, and the septic.
Yeah, and the septic until it's conveyed over to the HOA. So that will all be a part of the process. But the one of the last things we look to have happen is that we ensure that those things are conveyed to the HOA and that the HOA is in full force and effect when that happens.
Right. So so Maureen and Cameron are responsible for the roads and the utilities. If then it goes.
Bell Point is the developer. Warren
Well,
Cameron is just.
oh, sorry. So,
Will's over there like, no, not me.
Not me.
so if they give it to a developer, then builds the houses, is it the builder of the houses now responsible?
It's the developer. It's
So-
the owner of the land.
Okay.
Right now, Bell Point owns this whole
Okay.
parcel. And until they either turn it over to the homeowners association, or they could conceivably sell it to another developer. So if another developer is the one who's going to build the houses, he could buy the whole development from Bell Point, or he could buy the lots from Bell Point. So there's a lot of ways this can go. But until Bell Point either sells the development to someone else or turns over the roadways to the HOA, they own that infrastructure, basically. All right, so I will take a motion to continue the public hearing until our next meeting on June 17th and reopen it at 7 PM on June 17th.
So moved.
Thank you, Peter. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Shelley. Second, roll call vote, please.
Aye, Peter Levisser.
Aye, Beth Walsh. Aye, Shelley Bradbury.
Aye, Matthew Greco.
Aye, Ariel Brin.
Aye, Lisa O'Donnell.
You lost Simone.
Oh, Simone, okay. So we didn't have to roll call.
Probably good to
Okay, yeah.
do it,
Yep.
though, yeah.
Okay. So we are done with the hearing. Joan, you can power down, please. Thank you.